I'm quite curious why you're recording this and what you're looking to understand.
Well, we're genuinely looking to understand what the problem with extinction is.
Okay, so we're here today at Extinction Rebellion, the big one in central London, and we're going around and asking people, I think, a rather maybe left field question, and that is, what is wrong with extinction?
My question is, what is wrong with extinction?
Wow. Well, that's a really interesting question. And I think some people, there's lots of discussion around that now, isn't there? Because if you talk about it in terms of the human species and what we've done to the planet, in one way, if you were to look at it, maybe that isn't such a bad thing. But you could argue that's like a neo-fascist argument because it's the global south that are going to suffer, and we're the ones that have caused this in the first place in the West. And so if you was like take a really long view, the planet might end up better without humankind. But what about it's going to be horrendous, isn't it? It's going to be mass rape, murder, pillage, and us, you and all of us here are going to suffer from that less. So that's what's wrong with it, is that huge amount of suffering that's going to take place across the world, starting in the south. And that's why we've got an obligation to do our absolute best so that we're not the problem and we're part of the solution.
I don't think there is one. I think actually we're doing a lot of harm in the world and it would be better off without us. However, I had a debate with a friend of mine about this. I don't think, even if I had a placard saying I'm here for my grandchildren, which is true, it's not an altruistic movement because we're talking about keeping the status quo. And actually there'll be a lot of heat-loving bacteria which will live by breaking down chemicals that will evolve and be happy as Larry in a hot world, and we're denying that the option to them. But so it's a selfish point of view really, but I want the world to stay as nice as it is and them and others.
Extinction is master, and as living beings, that is everything that we strive to avoid. We want to live. Other living beings, of whether animal or non-animal, want to live. This planet is beautiful and interesting and vibrant. Everything that is good about being alive is because of life itself and the environments that allow that life to exist. Extinction is mass death. It is suffering.
Well, I think, I'm not religious in any way, really, but, the fact that we are sentient, we can communicate with great complexity. We can create very good things. My forebears were stonemasons, actually, and I think they've done rather a good job in general. And it just seems untenable to say, we all stop it, let's all stop, let's get extinct. I can't, like Dennis, I can't really answer it, but it's kind of like that. It's too absurd to contemplate, I think.
Biodiversity is really important. So if certain species no longer exist, we have less biodiversity, which is a big problem because our ecosystem is really fragile and all linked. And so if we wipe out a big proportion of that ecosystem, that balance is no longer in play and things start to go wrong. Yeah.
Right. So it seems to me that you're saying that the problem is not so much with human extinction, because let's start with human extinction, right? Because you're talking about certain, I presume, species of animals or flies or whatever it is, yeah. But let's start. I don't know, animals or insects or fish or bird. Yeah. But let's start with humans. What is wrong with human extinction?
I think that question needs to be unpicked slightly. So I don't think the human population is anywhere close to becoming extinct. So can you refine that question slightly?
Not everything's shit. Not everything's shit. I mean, our grandchildren and you know, all the fine things in life, and woodlands and flowers and creativity.
No, I agree with you. I don't think everything in life is shit. You know, once we're here, there are a lot of great things that we can do. But I guess if your grandchildren chose to, you know, end the line there, do you think that your potential great-grandchildren would be sort of wronged in any way, or missing out on something?
Really?
They would be missing out, but they wouldn't know about it, so it's not an issue. I don't think we have a duty to continue with the human race, and I'm not certain at the moment. I think we're hardwired for materialism, most people, and so actually we're bad news. We've evolved down a dead end.
Not all of us.
Where
You're not. You're not. It's not bad news. No, it's a strange time to be asked this question. I've just been diagnosed with 2 types of cancer.
Oh, sorry to hear.
And they're gonna do some fairly radical things to my body, and I can decide, do I not get screwed up with surgeons' knives and heavy chemicals? I don't, is it okay to become extinct now? And some part of me says, fucking no. I want more life.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I think it's an interesting one. Like the way that I often, if someone asked me if, you know, say, you know, if I decide not to have a kid, is that kid, you know, missing out on anything?
You didn't have.
Yeah, the kid I didn't have. And the way I think about it is, like, if you think back to the year, like 1750, for example, do you think that you were missing out in that year?
1750.
Yeah.
What then?
I just picked a random date that I know that none of us would exist in.
Politely too.
You have to go way far back so you don't offend anyone. Yeah. And that's what I think about people who could potentially exist in the future is, well, our 1750 is there now. Or, yeah, I'm not sure if I phrased that correctly, but I think you get what I mean. Is they just simply don't exist. There is no one to be missing out on anything.
On anything?
I don't think so.
Do you value anything about life? About being alive, or you're quite happy to fold up yourself?
No, I think
population. A lot of it is the population's too big. Do you volunteering?
Well, we're not going around asking people.
No. I'm sorry. You are allowed to answer a question with a question.
Yeah, no, and I will answer your question. We're not going around saying that I think people should end their existence. We're asking, you know, because once you're here, we all have an interest in continuing to exist. Now, obviously, there are certain circumstances where that may change for people, but generally, we do want to continue living. But before we were born, there was no one to want that life to be started, right? And so I think, you know, if that's the case, there's no real reason to be creating people, because there's no one really to want to come into existence.
If you're concerned about suffering, sounds like you are, right? Then surely extinction would be the end of suffering.
Well, I think it depends what you mean by extinction and how you envision that extinction happening. I think perhaps a lot of us think to the dinosaurs, where it was like a sudden extinction, where there wasn't a lot of suffering because it was quite rapid. What we are going to experience with the climate and ecological crisis is a slow extinction. It's an extinction that is already happening with many species. Many species have already gone extinct because of it and are in the process of dying out. It's a mass suffering, which will then result in death. And it isn't just a particular species, it is most of the species. It is certainly most of the species that we recognise and depend on. So that is suffering. It's not a mercy of a quick extinction. It is a long a long period of misery before we sort of dwindle out completely. And who wants that?
Whilst I understand that the animal kingdom, it's a problem, for example, if, let's say, the bees went extinct, then we'd have a real problem. I can understand that. But from the bees' point of view, is there any problem with extinction?
From the bees' point of view,
Yeah.
extinction is quite broad. Your question's quite broad. I'm quite curious why you're recording this and what you're looking to understand.
Well, we're genuinely looking to understand what the problem with extinction is. Because from my point of view, I'm happy to tell you that I don't have a problem with extinction. I'm going to die of everything, of everything, right? I don't have a problem with it because as far as I'm concerned, when extinction happens, that'll be the end of all suffering and pain and problems, right? So I'm trying to genuinely understand why people have got a problem with it.
I think people here feel really connected to nature and the planet.
And people.
Yeah.
And like, as in, it's not about extinction as a finite thing. If extinction happened in a few seconds' time, it would just happen without all the consequences that we're about to face over the next 100, 200, 300 years that we might face, that our children might face, our families, as well as planet, biodiversity, and how it's all interconnected and will affect us. It's not about the finite moment of extinction.
Yeah, I think death is a separate thing to extinction. So the way I think about it is I feel very grateful that I have like the pleasure to be here and exist and experience different things. And I know that time is finite.
Can't stop humans reproducing more than they should, including myself. And we can't do anything about, it seems like we can't do anything about the burgeoning of the human race. So it's good to try and work to make it a kinder human race and a more considerate human race. And I suppose that's what appeals to me about the Extinction Rebellion, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth message, is that we're not just thinking about ourselves. And it's a small step, but it is a step.
Well, thank you.